They've come to the American people with a gun at our heads. They've said, if you don't give AIG $150 billion, first it was $85 billion, and it keeps going up, and who knows where it's going to stop. If you don't give the banks $700 billion, if you don't give Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac hundreds of billions of dollars, then the whole system collapses, and you'll be worse off than you otherwise would have been. We have allowed a system to develop that puts our whole economy in this kind of jeopardy. That should be saying something about the magnitude of the failures in running our economy. We need to put this a little bit in perspective. $150 billion is more money than the World Bank lends in 15 years. We've spent that out on one company. We could have done enormous amounts to reduce poverty around the world. We have not been able to meet our commitments to the developing countries, saying it's beyond our budget envelope. And yet, overnight, we found $150 billion. A little while ago, President Bush vetoed a measure that would provide health insurance to children who do not have access to health care today. He said we cannot afford it. He was talking about a few $billion. And somehow, a few months later, we find $150 billion to help one sick insurance company. There was a party going on, and no one wanted to be a party pooper. We had regulators that didn't understand their job. The job of a regulator has traditionally been to take away the punch bowl when the party gets too raucous, because otherwise the taxpayer is going to wind up cleaning up the mess. The problem was that President Reagan did not believe in regulation. And he decided to appoint a regulator who didn't believe in regulation. And if you have regulators who don't believe in regulation, no matter what your laws are, you're not going to get good regulation. But we shouldn't just blame President Reagan, Alan Greenspan. There was a regulatory mantra going out there. It was, in some sense, to be frank, bipartisan. We repealed Glass-Steagall Act. That was an act to try to separate out investment banks, which serve the needs of upper-income individuals engaged in high risk-taking, and commercial banks that are supposed to be taking money from ordinary Americans, protecting it, so that when you want your money back, you get it back. Bringing those together created problems of conflicts of interest, but it also created a problem of culture, because traditionally, the old traditional banks, commercial banks, are supposed to be conservative because they're protecting our money. The investment banks are dealing with upper income people. They can take gambles. Bringing those two together led to a culture of risk-taking that was totally inappropriate, and we are now seeing the consequences. I believe it was in 2004, the SEC decided to allow the investment banks to have even more leverage, to take on even more risk. And you can say to gamble even more. And they had grown so large that they were too big to fail, which meant that, in effect, if they won, they walked off with the profits. They, the investment banks, the heads of the investment banks, including the people who are now running the U.S. Treasury, if they failed, we, the taxpayer, would pick up the pieces. The only way that this is going to be corrected is through not only the electoral process, but continual pressure on Congress to make sure that what really we have to keep our focus on is Main Street, businesses, American people, the foreclosure problem, people losing their homes. The Bush administration has been based on a process of trickle-down economics. Throw enough money at the top, and some of the crumbs will get down to the rest of us. We have to change that, but there'll be a lot of pressure not to do that. We have to create a financial product safety commission. They were creating products that were really too dangerous to be put in pension funds or be held by commercial banks or pension funds. We need a financial markets stability commission that is able to look at the whole financial system. We didn't have anybody looking at AIG and the investment banks and the commercial banks all together. We thought it was okay just to look at the commercial banks, but then we realized the commercial banks are tied in with investment banks. Then we realized the AIG was involved in the investment banks, and that we are told now that we had to bail out AIG $150 billion in order to save some of the investment banks, in order to save some of the commercial banks, in order to save our economy.